DJ and PK brought to you in part by Teton Wealth. Ethan Miller with Teton Wealth will be live in studio with Haynes and Scotty today to help you with your retirement plan. Tune in or visit retireteton.com. We're joined now by Rafael Barlowe from the NBA Big Board. It is time to talk NBA draft. Rafael, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Nobody in Utah's in a very good mood right now.
I'm sorry. I didn't even think about that. I apologize. Yes, it was a rough night, I imagine.
Yes. So the Jazz have the 5th pick. Can they trade up? Should they look at somebody who's going to be a really good player who's not as hyped and then grab at the 5th spot? What is the next best move?
I honestly think Tre Johnson would be a good fit for Utah. I mean, he's a gifted scorer. The SEC was the toughest conference in college basketball, probably college basketball history. He led the SEC in scoring. He shot 39% from three on a high volume of attempts, a lot of them contested attempts. I think that he is the type of guy that could end up being a go-to scorer in the NBA. So I think Utah is still in a good position if he's available at 5.
Yeah, I think you just said what I was going to say. Will he be available if Charlotte is? Let's just assume for the sake of discussion that the top 5, the picks, the teams that have the picks, keep the picks. Would he be available? What would Charlotte do? I mean, you look at Charlotte and the Jazz, they need a lot of help just about anywhere, best player available. So what do you think that Charlotte would do?
Charlotte is a wild card. I mean, they could look at VJ Edgecombe. But I think with the whole Mark Williams botched trade situation, I think it kind of puts them in a position where they need a center. They need a man in the middle. And if I'm Charlotte, I'd probably really strongly consider Common Maluach. Sorry, I'm in the hallway. I have to calm behind. But I would consider Maluach simply because I think he has a lot of upside. But also, I just can't see them bringing Mark Williams back next year, and you can replace a Duke 7-footer with another Duke 7-footer.
Yeah.
How much movement do you think there'll be in the draft based on the combine where a lot of the top players won't play? I'd be interested to see how many of them are sitting out. But still, they go through the interview process, and sometimes we see people really climb or really plummet depending on how they handle the interviews, as we just saw in the NFL with Shedeur Sanders.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's interesting because I just arrived here at the arena, and there's a group working out now of Cooper Flagg, I think it's Common Maluach, Derek Queen, Tre Johnson. It's like a really impressive group that's working out. Now, they're not playing 5-on-5, but in years past, you never even saw lottery picks even do any drills. Like usually guys would just sit and do interviews. So I do think that this year is going to be different, but there could be a lot of movement. And you just never know with the interview process. Some guys may not interview well. It could be the inner circle around players. But this draft could be one of the most unpredictable because you have the potential of a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo who could be available. And there are quite a few teams picking at the top half of the lottery that have a lot of assets that could be enticing for Milwaukee.
What range do you put Jakashonis, the kid out of the foreign kid from Lithuania out of Illinois, in terms of, like 5 to 10 or whatever? Where do you see him going as far as a range?
I think you can go 5 to 15. I'm a little bit lower on him than the consensus, so I have him just outside of my lottery. But I've seen some mock drafts this morning. They think that he would be a target for Houston at 10 if they decide to move on from Fred VanVleet. I don't know. I think his range is pretty fluid, but I think it's going to be in the eyes of the beholder.
Why are you down on him when other people aren't? What is it that you see that bugs you?
He's a point guard, and he averaged like 3.7 turnovers per game and doesn't consistently turn the corner. And I thought that this year, as the season went on, he became a little bit predictable as other teams' defenses started keying on the step-back jumper. So just from my personal view, I think I would rather have a point guard that I know that can consistently get 2 feet in the paint, draw 2 defenders, and kick out to guys. And so I think for him, I just don't know if he's going to be really good at turning the corner and getting by NBA-level defenders.
Who do you list as the best shooter?
The best shooter, oh man, I just walked right by him. Kobe Brea from Kentucky definitely has to be in that mix. Concanepo shot over 40% from three. And Tre Johnson. I think Tre Johnson, as far as just catch and shoot, he has to be in that range. Like I said, he shot 39% from three on like 6 attempts per game. And very, very few of them were like shots that were created by others. He had to create a lot of those shots on his own. So I think he could be in that mix. I'm forgetting somebody else. John Poulikitis from Yale. If you're an Auburn fan, I apologize, but Auburn fans remember him for what he did in the NCAA tournament last year. So there's quite a few good shooters. I know I'm missing one.
You mentioned Knippel, and so in a lot of mock drafts, it looks like those two versus each other. You know, they seem to be in the same range, and somebody has one in front of the other, and somebody has the other. What are the differences? We're splitting hairs there, but very important if you're making that pick. What are the differences?
Between Concanepo and who? I'm sorry.
And Tre Johnson.
I just think Tre has higher upside. I think Knupples is safe. He's a good connective passer, but I think if I had to put and I'm not a gambling man, but if I had to put my money on which guy will be a 25-point-per-game scorer in the NBA, I think I would go with Tre Johnson.
Yeah, you've sold me, man. I'm starting to go in that direction, and I appreciate that.
I'm a little biased. Yeah, I've seen Tre since he was in high school, and there was a game where he was like in 10th grade. He scored 40 points against Cason Wallace, who's a pretty good defender himself. Sure. And ever since then, I've been a Tre Johnson fan.
The Jazz have the 21st pick there, and you know, obviously, the longer you go, it gets a little more of a crapshoot. But a kid like Liam McNeely, a tough-minded kid there, that might be something. What do you see as far as other possibilities with that second first-round pick?
Liam is a guy that I'm not high on. The reason why I'm not high on him is, I mean, think of it this way. If a guy shot 31% from three and has athletic concerns, that doesn't necessarily scream 31%. Yeah, 31% from three, 38% from the floor. With athletic and defensive concerns, that just doesn't scream first-round pick to me. I may be in the minority there, but I do think he is a better shooter than the numbers indicated. He had a monster game against Creighton earlier this year, but I think I would go in another direction if I were Utah, picking in the 20s.
Do you think San Antonio is going to trade out of that number 2 spot? I read some stuff where people are thinking that that's not a great fit for them with Harper and Castle, and they're both ball dominant. But maybe that's just people who love the trade machine and love to throw stuff out there. It's super early. What's your first instinct when you hear that?
You know, my first instinct was it could work, and then I don't know how, but I totally forgot that they traded for De'Aaron Fox at the trade deadline. Maybe it's because he didn't play a lot of games for San Antonio. So I could see how all three of those guys, it could be a little bit redundant. But if you think about what San Antonio could offer, I mean, they could offer a pretty enticing package for Giannis Antetokounmpo. It could be picks 2, 14, Castle, and then whatever big contract you need to make the money work. And so if you can end up with a De'Aaron Fox, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Victor Wembanyama big three, I think you go for that. You go for that every time it's available.
The Spurs have 2 picks now. Obviously, they've got 14 also. Mm-hmm. I think they got that through Atlanta with, was it the Murray trade? How about our guy down the road, Egor Demin? How do you see him possibly be in a situation there?
For San Antonio?
Yeah, at 14.
Yeah, it could work. I mean, I guess in today's NBA, you want to have as many passers and ball handlers and length as possible. But I think Egor is at best with the ball in his hands, and with Fox there, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. But I'm a big Egor fan. I've been following him since he was 15, and I think he's going to do well. I actually think that Toronto would be a pretty interesting fit for him. But I've also heard there's some teams that may like him that have too many scorers, and they need an unselfish guard that's going to feed their scorers the ball. And so I think that he's going to have some intrigue there.
So how much does he fall because his three-point shooting didn't look very good?
Man, I think he stays in the lottery. I really do. At one point in the season, I thought that it was more likely that he returns to BYU, but I felt like he redeemed himself with his performance in the NCAA tournament. So I can't see him falling past. Yeah, I can't see him falling outside of the lottery. I think Toronto was probably a good fit for him if they want to move quickly, some off the ball. Other than that, I don't think Chicago makes a lot of sense because of Josh Giddey, unless they don't want to pay Josh Giddey and then they feel like they can get a younger version of him for cheaper. That can make sense there. But I think he's a lottery pick.
I think Cooper Flagg will be great. What level of great, if you think he'll be great, do you think he will be in the NBA?
I mean, I see him as a multi-time All-Star, a winner. I think that's the most important thing, is I think he's going to be a winner. Is he going to be the franchise guy, the closer? I'm not sure. But if he ends up being Anthony Davis, who's had a really good career, and, it's debatable if Anthony Davis is – if you can win a championship with Anthony Davis as your lead dog. But Anthony Davis is a great 1A or 1B, and I think Cooper could end up having an Anthony Davis-like career.
All right, as always, Rafael, we love the passion and all that. The hallway got pretty quiet. You might be missing something in the gym. You better get in and check that out.
Yeah. But anytime you want me on, let me know.
Well, we appreciate you stepping out and talking to us for a few minutes. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Rafael Barlowe, NBA Big Board, joining us once again here on the show. So you're getting your favorites, starting to fall in love with guys? Or you'll read stuff and fall in love with guys and fall out of love and go through the spin cycle.
The one thing I just refuse to do is fall in love with a dreamer. It'll always break your heart, so you got that going on there.
Yeah.
I always thought that the possibilities at 5, if they were to get 5, I didn't think they'd get 5, but that's the reality of it. So now I've got, in my mind, 3 guys. But I've had that for a number of months now. I just didn't think that they would get 5. But I have to accept that they've got 5.
And is it the kid from Illinois one of them?
No.
Okay, when you asked about him, I didn't know. And originally, he was up that high.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But no. I do think watching some Illinois basketball, I get what Rafael says there is like he loved to shoot threes. He wanted to step back off the dribble. He seemed reluctant to really drive. And I think this is why teams want to put him in a situation, bring him in for a workout. Who knows what the coach was telling him and what each team's strategy is. Maybe he's being coachable, but it's like, can he do this? Can he beat good defenders off the dribble and get into the paint?
I like his body. Strong kid.
Mm-hmm.
Already has NBA, but everybody can get stronger, but he's not a physically underwhelming Cody Williams type
I was going to say, is this bounce back after Cody Williams? You want the next guy to, and to a certain degree, Hendricks, but definitely Cody.
Assuming everybody keeps their
pick
and their spots,
mm-hmm.
I think they'll have
Knipple, Tre Johnson,
Edgecombe. But I don't know if Tre Johnson will be there. See, I just didn't think they would fall to 5.
But those 3 guys you think are going to be 4, 5, 6?
I believe so, in some form of combination. And K-Nip can shoot. And I want to be able to say K-Nip.
That's it?
That was K-Nips, and now we've gone to K-Nip.
You want K-Nips or K-Nip?
Well, you said K-Nips earlier, so I'm just trying to get which one we're going with.
Maybe K-Nip sounds a little cooler.
Okay.
Guy can shoot, and you can argue all he was overshadowed by Flagg, and I understand that. But, you watch Duke. It seems like I've been watching Duke for 30 years, and I see them play.
They're always on. You just randomly flipping through channels, and there's Duke
they got
again.
players.
Yeah.
And some of the Duke guys, it's a new era now because they got a new coach, but they just seem a little on the soft side. And you gotta be tough. And that's part of the deal. I mean, you don't even necessarily have to be big, but you gotta be tough. Stockton, not big at all, but just tough as can be. That's what I'll take a little less so-called skill,
a little less skill, or a little less athleticism if you get some toughness,
right?
Because 100%, for a fact in the probably earlier, but certainly in the playoffs, someone's going to try to bully you.
Right.
They're going to. And you got to fight through it, both physically and mentally. It'll be both.
Yeah, if you can get guys who have both, if you can get a guy like Dwayne Wade, who, by the way, was drafted 5th.
There it is.
He had mental toughness and skill. well, then you're really onto something. But I don't think Dwayne Wade's grow on trees at number 5. And K-Nips, to me, having watched him a bunch, seemed like he's got some toughness. So he might be a possibility. If everything stays the same, right now I would go with Tre Johnson if he's available. But I don't know that he'll be available. And then I decide Edgecombe, he's a young buck, man. Is
there any chance Ace Bailey?
So young.
Is there any chance Ace Bailey slides to 5?
I think there's a possibility because he didn't measure the height that they thought.
Right.
I'd grab him instantly if he were available at 5. And this is where, these guys, they've stood pat now in the draft for 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Do they stand pat a third year? I would say maybe not. I'd lean like a 55-45 right now.
55 move up, 45 stand pat?
Do something, yes.
What about move back?
Well, if
he's in love with somebody, we don't know what Ainge thinks.
What am I getting in return?
Yeah.
To move back. A move of aggression, moving back can just not, I don't like anybody, so I'll move back so I don't have to pay him or whatever. No, I'm
going to put move back at like 5%. I'll leave it in the mix because I view Danny Ainge as a wild card, but I don't think it's what they'll do. But I'll leave it on the table as a possibility. Just an unlikely one.
It's been so quiet on the trade and draft front.
Yes.
It's like, here's our picks, our slots, and we take a player when they become when it's our turn.
Whoever's the best player available in our mind, we'll take him and then we'll move on.
Yeah, and it's been
the
standard.
Where's the wheeling? Where's the dealing?
Yeah, he's Danny Ray.
Small moves around the margins, right? John Collins looked like a value acquisition.
And
don't pay much, and he'll get better, and be in a better situation and perform better.
I want to see something bold, and if you lose Oklahoma City's pick, c'est la vie, as they say, and I don't even know what c'est la vie means.
I always thought it meant see you later.
Oh, it did?
Or does it mean que sera, sera? I don't know.
When people said c'est la vie, I'd always say la vie.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. When we come back, Brian Howell, Colorado Buffaloes beat writer for Buff Zone of the Boulder Daily Camera, joins us next. Our spring football tour. Deion's got to rebuild. That's next.